This is episode number 3 and part 2 with Heath Armstrong. Welcome to the Quarter Life Comeback Podcast, the show that empowers you to become the hero of your journey from 25 to life. I'm your host, Brian Tier. Now let the comeback begin. Hey guys, welcome back to the Quarter Life Comeback Podcast and part 2 of our interview with Heath Armstrong. If you missed the first part of the interview, you can catch it at briantier.com/002. But in the meantime, this is going to be an even better, I think, part of the interview. You're going to learn some of Heath's habits, his morning routine, and a lot more. So if you haven't heard the first part, go and check that out. But otherwise, enjoy this part of the episode with Heath Armstrong. I'd love to just sort of hear what your typical day looks like now.
Yeah, man, I really dissected from doing all those interviews, and that's what I'm working on right now because I've taken a hiatus from social media is to take all of those. I found what I think the number is like a bulk of 8 like super principles that all of these people followed. I really, really studied. I made transcripts of all these episodes, and I've really been looking into the similarities. And so I'm compiling that into a book. But the morning routine is one of these core principles that I think you have to reach your full potential. And if you look at limits in life, right? So I think that we all have real limits, which are like, I can't, put an astronaut suit on and go to the moon today. I mean, if I really tried for the next 20 years to get myself there, I'm sure I could probably do it. But there are real limits in life. Like I can't go join an NBA basketball team because I just, I can't jump and I'm slow. So I don't necessarily think that it's bad when people say you have no limits, you can do anything you want, because it's true in a way from a mental perspective. But there are physical and mental limits in reality. That's just how it is. But yeah. The difference is, so if you imagine like a big circle of like your real limits in life, like think about a tiny little circle inside of that. So you're looking at something that kind of looks like a boob, and there's this little circle inside of it, say it's like the nipple or whatever. And those are like the limits that we put on ourselves, like self-restraints. And the sad thing is that 99.9% of people live inside this self-restraint limit. And it's such a small circle, but their potential is actually as big as their real limit circle, like the outer shell. And so what I've done is I've found these, the whole boob. I've found these principles that I've been able to pull from all of these amazing people that I've interviewed. I've applied these to my life. And what I've realized is if you practice every single one of them inside of your self-imposed circle, your self-imposed circle is going to start expanding until eventually when you master it all, when you master all these routines, you are at your real life limits. Like that is how you actually live an optimal, amazing, healthy, happy, passionate life, is when you can push your self-imposed limits out to that whole core. And so morning routines is probably, if I looked at a pie chart, I want to break these down evenly between the 8 principles. But to be honest, morning routines is probably one of the top 2 most important of all of these. Routines in general, but for me, it works in the morning. And so when I wake up, I'll run you right through exactly what I do. My alarm goes off at 4:30. I walk into the bathroom and I brush my teeth and I chug a glass of water. And then my dogs are going crazy. I've got 3 huge dogs. I'm like a dog freak. I love them. Like they're, they love getting up too for some reason. And I think it's just because they want to eat. But I go upstairs to my kitchen and I get my cell phone out. I don't check my email. That was a problem. That was a bad habit to try to break.
Yeah.
That's a horrible thing to do in the morning. But I open up Spotify and I put on like a mindful meditation background music. And there's lots of different playlists that I follow. So a Zen or something. And so I have that rolling first thing in the morning. And I get out, some spirulina, blue-green algae, reishi mushroom, different kinds of supplements that I take. And I take them and I drink like in another whole glass of water. And then I brew some tea. And while I'm doing that, I feed the dogs and then I make a smoothie and I go outside in the front yard barefoot. I think that if you connect to the world, like, all of us spend so much time in a concrete jungle or with our shoes on.
Mm.
If you walk outside barefoot, I don't care if it's hot or cold, freezing or burning up, like, you will not believe the kind of inspiration that'll shoot through your mind and your body if you just connect, right?
I
To the
totally agree. Yeah, I think they call it earthing.
earthing, yeah. And like, if people are like, "Oh, you dirty wook," like and I'm like, you can call me whatever you want now, but like, I've noticed that more and more I get so annoyed having shoes on because I've been trying to walk around barefoot more, and I've realized how much healthier it is for us. I'm more creative. I feel like I'm more connected to the world, and I'm just generally happier. And so I go do that, and I look up at the sky, man, and I just, like, it could be raining or cloudy, and maybe I won't be out there very long, but I do make a point to walk out there, and that makes a big difference to me. And so when I come back in, I'm like, yes, like, I want to fist pump. I'm smiling. There are days where I'm like being a complete poop pants crybaby, but that's just the nature of being a human. Like, we all go through those days, but these types of things help in those situations as well. And so then I come back inside, and I grab the tea that I was brewing, and I have this room in my house, and it's a meditation room, and there's nothing in it. And I've done a really good job of minimizing. I mean, I used to be borderline hoarder, and I've pretty much gotten rid of everything, and it's been one of the other most beneficial things I've ever done in my life. Freeing, super freeing. But I've got a couple blankets on the ground that I sit on. I've got a pile of incense, massive amounts of incense, dude. And I've got just like all of these core books that I'm just in love with that are kind of circled around this little section where I sit. And I've got some, like, cool little rock protective gems that Lindsay gave me at some time. And that's a really spiritual place for me. Like, I meditate, and as soon as I get done meditating, that could go anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes, depending on how deep I get into it. I go into creative writing, and morning routines can be modified for anybody's liking. But I meditate and go into creative writing because I think my brain is on that, like, muse surge as soon as I get out of meditation, and I can write the best. And so I never know what I'm going to end up writing. I just start writing. And I've started
like morning pages type thing.
Yeah, and sometimes I'll do pen to paper, and I'll do poetry. Sometimes I'll do just creative, inspirational writing. A lot of the solo podcast episodes I put out or blog posts were just stuff that stemmed from the muse after a meditation. And then sometimes I work on the book, and I get out. I've got a little program called, I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's ILYS.com, and basically, your screen goes black. You set an amount of words that you want to type, and then, like, you can't exit out of it until you finish that amount of words. So it just shows you It shows you one big letter or one big number at a time, which is the number of words you're on. So if I've typed 240 words, it'll show me 240. But if my goal is 1,000, then there's a progress bar at the top of the screen that'll show you, you're only about 1/5 of the way there.
Cool. I'll have to link to that in the show notes.
Yeah, it's cool. And then once you're done, it basically kind of shows you like an Evernote type of layout. Like, it's all saved in the cloud, and then it shows you a bar graph of how much you've been writing. And that's one of those things where you just have to create the habit, and then you're going to be productive. And so I write. After I write, I generally kind of sit for a second and think. And I look at my vision board, which is huge. And on my vision board, it changes a lot, but it's what am I working towards? And I know we talked about this before. It's crazy when you get, because at first, when you make your first vision board, you're looking at it like, oh, it'd be amazing to get to any one of these places. But then before you can even like realize that it's happening, you look at your vision board again, and you have become over half of it, right? You're taking things off that are reality now, and you're putting new things on. And I don't know. It's so hard to explain that kind of feeling. Like, it's incredible to do that. And so I look at that, and then I get into my affirmations, which really, for a year and a half, every single day I wrote down a date that I was going to leave my job, which was June 22nd, 2016. That was a number that came to me. And I just kept writing it every single day to convince my mind. And I also wrote, I am location independent, right? And things that I was working on back then, but every single day I wrote, I am location independent, and I wrote that date. Now I'm writing things like, I am a best-selling author because I'm working towards that. But those affirmations are insanely important to me because they really do. And you being a health guy, you probably know more about this than I do, but visualizing and convincing yourself of something is the most effective thing to actually become that person, right?
Yeah.
Like, have you noticed that? Like, it's just
Absolutely. I mean, even my own vision board, I found, as you said, I found stuff that I thought it would take like 3 years or 5 years. After 1 year, I was like, well, I've kind of got there now. I need to upgrade that little picture a little bit or whatever it may be.
yeah.
But I wanted to ask related to the vision board and even the affirmations, when you're writing them out and when you like choosing your pictures or whatever, do you have an idea of how you're going to get there, or do you just simply write out and picture these things happening?
Yes. So when I first put them up there, that's my vision, right? This is where I want to go. But then you do have to really take into account how are you going to get there. And there are definitely things that make it way more effective. So after I get done visualizing, I'll play guitar for like 20, 30 minutes, which I've fallen back in love with again. And I almost gave that up a couple years ago. I had this nice guitar that I never played, and I'm so glad that I put that into my day every day. I really highly stress everybody, if you have a hobby or if you want to practice something, just put it into your morning routine for even 10 minutes a day. And you're going to be, it's mind blowing how good you can get. And so after that is when I kind of overview my goals and what my methods are going to be for the day. And so I'm a big fan of Honore Corder's STMA structure. She does this short-term massive action. She writes about it in her book, Vision to Reality. But she has created this kind of method of, you have 100 days and you want to get to a certain goal, so you can break that goal down to 100 days individually. And the reason that she chooses 100 days and not 3 months or a year is because at 100 days, it's not too short, it's not too long, but you can evenly divide it out to figure out what percentage you are on track. So, if I want to make $100 a day for 100 days and I'm on day 5 and I've made $500, I know I'm 100% on track to hit my goal. But if I'm low, if I'm at 250 out of day 5, then I know I'm only at 2.5 and I'm lagging behind a little bit. And so it's been extremely important for me, 2 different things. One, to track the overall progress of my goals. Like with my Amazon and e-commerce side business, this has been a huge thing for me. Every single day, know exactly what my goals are for numbers for the day and what I have actually gotten to for the day, and if I'm behind or if I'm ahead. But the other thing is not allowing other things to distract you from what your most important main priority is. And that's a question in itself. Like, what is the most important priority? Well, it's a hard thing to figure out, but if you really dive into what makes you happy and what is going to be the number one thing that gets you there the fastest, that's what you need to be concentrating on. And I tried all these different methods that I made up. I mean, at one point I was color coding my vision board with all the different things on the board. And I was saying, okay, on Mondays, I'm going to work on these things that are yellow. On Tuesdays, I'm going to work on these things that are orange. And that could work for some people. But then when it comes down to it, man, it's like the thing that works the best for me is I limit myself to 2 main projects at a time. And I kind of go back and forth working on both of them because it's not too much to manage and you don't have to just get burnt out on one. And I write down 2 things every morning on a note card with that same date, 6/22/15. And I don't do anything else besides my, when I have to go to work for 8 to 10 hours.
Yeah.
Before, if I have time after my morning routine or when I get home from work, those are the first 2 things I do. And then once those are done, I can move on to something else if I have time, or I can relax my mind, go for a run, or I can go to bed earlier than normal or something like that. And I think that that's just pretty much the staple of how I keep my shit together. Like it doesn't, there's no real magic behind it. It's just that you have to want it and you have to be willing to be persistent enough to do it. And if you if you stay true to yourself and you keep pushing forward, you're going to get there 100%. If you're going from point A to point B and you keep going, inevitably you're going to get there at some point, right? And it'll come a lot faster than you think if you just stick to it every single day.
Cool. So your morning routine takes you until you need to get off to your normal day job, and then when you come back, you dive into those 1 to 2 most important tasks for the day. Is that what
sometimes I'll have a little bit of time in the morning to work on them as well. It's really awesome if you can knock those things out before you even go to work.
When you're meditating, are you doing a guided meditation? Or are you just sitting in silence? How does your practice look?
Well, it's funny because when I first started meditating, I was the type of person when I was a raging alcoholic that I used to just laugh and make fun of people who meditated. Like, look at these morons. I mean, that just shows how close-minded people can be because of their upbringing or because of the different societies or cultures that we grow up in. But I specifically remember looking at people and laughing at them. And like when I heard a podcast, I don't remember what show it was, but I heard one with Kim Nickel, who literally ended up changing my life. She was one of the first people I had on my show. It was like episode 4. And I emailed her because it was the first time I heard a podcast that like really just, I don't know, something extremely, extremely attracted me to her. Like I had to talk to her. And so I sent her some questions, in an email, at that point, I'm not expecting answers from people, but she answered me immediately. And she was so like openly free. And her energy is just one of those people that's beyond, I don't know, it's hard to explain how just beautiful everything about her is. And
I need to get her on. I think.
Yeah, she is incredible. And she had this crazy story about, she was a lawyer and she had gone to work one day and there was a guy who had gotten hit by a bus and killed in San Francisco right in front of her office. And she was like, oh, that's horrible. And she went up to her office and it was like a guy that she had worked with. And at that point, it hit her like, wow, like I'm not healthy. What am I doing? Like, is this a job I even want? And she changed her life and she left her job and she started teaching lawyers mindfulness to make them feel better, to make them feel healthier, to let them see things in life that are happier, because that's one of the most depressing professions there is. And she has just taken off. I mean, the things she's done now, she wrote a book called Offering that came out like a month or 2 ago, literally one of my Bibles. Like that and The War of Art, those two together, unbelievable. Both of them can be read like passage to passage, any part of the book you can open to. But she said, I have this 5 mindful minutes meditation, kind of guided meditation beginners thing I can send you. I think she was selling it. I actually bought it from her because I like to contribute to people that I feel like the value is worth spending a little bit of crush credits on, right? And so I sent her the crush creds for the meditation package, and I didn't know what was going to happen, but I knew something about her was so awesomely magical that I was going to at least try to do what she was, pushing me to do. And so, man, I don't know if it's just me or if this can happen to other people or what, but the first meditation, I was immediately hooked. And I know most people say, oh, I was just mad, I was frustrated, but my first meditation, I specifically remember sitting on the ground, and when I came back to and opened my eyes, I was just seeing colors. Like I had gone into some deep place that I hadn't visited in a long time. And it was the most relaxing, calming thing ever, to the point where I was a runner at the time, but I couldn't run without my headphones. And I had this like surge of energy, and I got up and just went for a run without my headphones. I did like 4 miles without stopping, no headphones. And as before, if I tried to go 1/8 of a mile without headphones, I wouldn't be able to do it because I needed that music. And I had just never felt so good in my life than I did. And my mind was like jogging with all these awesome ideas. Like this is incredible. So as I started to put that into a routine, like I went from these guided meditations to doing more of the kind of spacey Zen music stuff. That are longer, where people don't talk, because I think it's a process. Like, have you noticed you get a little bit better and better as you do it, and then you can kind of reach out and do different types of meditations?
Yeah, definitely.
And Molly Knight Ford, I had her on my show, and she opened me up to a whole nother level, which was like being aware more of an awareness side of being able to implement meditations into things when you're actually open-eyed and conscious. Like every
Yeah,
time
I've heard about that, but I haven't quite got to that level yet.
I
I
know
don't think.
I've been practicing it. It's kind of crazy. Like, so she's like, when you start to be aware of certain things around you, then you can pair that with some kind of meditation. So every time I see like a yellow Volkswagen Beetle drive by, make sure I can remember to wiggle my fingers and toes and take 3 deep breaths and things like that. And it's insanely like, I don't know, it kind of makes life like, I love the Crush Credits game that I'm doing with my friends, but I also love that meditation game because again, it comes down to awareness. Like, are you getting rid of your distractions, and are you insanely aware of what is going on around you that is going to help you catapult yourself to the life you love? And all of these little things, they play into it. And if you become more aware, then you can actually utilize them to become that person. And yeah, I mean, the meditations, like I mix them. I guess to answer your question shortly, I do guided. I have friends who do guided meditations that I love. Gina Cha, I love Kim's, but I also I like the music. I think more I listen to the music than I do the guided ones anymore. But the guided ones are great for visualizing because Kim sent me one that was like 20 minutes. And I asked her, she said, I'll do one custom for you. What do you want me to do? And I said, well, just help me visualize where I'm going to live when I'm in my dream life and what I'm going to be working on and these things I love. So she did that. And it's an awesome meditation. Like I can send it to you if you want. People can download it. It doesn't say my name or anything.
Yeah, we'll link to that in the show notes.
Yeah, it's like 20 minutes, and it's just like it walks you through this kind of it's when you listen to it, you'll understand. It puts you in that place you need to be in the future. And that was the point when I first listened to that, where I started visualizing what my home was going to be when I moved to the Northwest. And now that I'm moving to the Northwest, like I'm going to be becoming that vision in June when I move. And so it's like, oh man, it's like, I don't know, unlimited smiles. I don't know how to explain it. Fist pumps, like constant.
You're gonna have to get a new meditation then.
I don't know. I think you can just. I think you can just. You can utilize it for the next step, right? Like just push it to the next.
What advice would you give to people, either facing, feeling fear before a big decision, or people who are stuck in a very negative spiral like you were with the drinking?
You have to become the type of person who can see the beauty in the things that might seem negative to everybody else. And I think when you can do that, then when you're scared and when you are afraid that you can't become the person that you want to become, it becomes a lot easier to do that. Too many of us are scared of the next step or to attack our dreams because we live in that self-imposed circle, right? Like we think our limits are much smaller than they actually are. And when I talk to a guy named Dave Lent, an older gentleman who spent his life creating videos to try to teach people how to become a master. And like he had gotten BB King, Carlos Santana. And so when I was talking to him, I'm like, man, I'm just scared. I'm really fearful of being able to do this. I don't really truly believe I can, but I'm trying every day and I'm not giving up. And he said, you have to stop worrying about if you can or can't and start realizing that it doesn't matter either way unless you try. And he said, you have got to take into account everything around you that you're looking at negatively. Like I'm sitting here listening to you tell me about how much you hate your job. He's like, but you wouldn't be here talking to me if you didn't have that job. And I was like, whoa, you're right. Like I wouldn't be able to support myself. And he's like, you have to understand that everything that you have done in life, every positive or quote unquote negative situation that you've been involved with was the direct reason why you are sitting here where you are today. And had you have done anything differently, whether that be one conversation, one phone call, or even gone to Panera Bread on one random day, 3 years ago, your life might be completely different than it is right now, because it all takes into account who you interact with and when you interact with them and the things that you can learn from them. And he said, you have got to start realizing that there is so much beauty in all the things around you and stop thinking that it's horrible and that you hate it, because that's where fear gets its power. So when we think about, oh, I hate my job, or I really don't want to go drive today, or I hate my boss, or all it's doing is allowing fear to creep in and run the rest of your day and give you that negative mindset. So when you can actually reframe your mind to think about all the beautiful things, what you're doing is you're suppressing the fear gremlins. Like they can't do anything. They can't hurt you. They can't attack you. You're dominating them, right? You're putting your nuts on their chin. Like they've got no power over you because you're not allowing it. And in conjunction with what Dave told me, Jacqueline was the first person who said, I want you to start writing down your wins every day. And at first I started doing it on the weekends, but I soon realized that if you do it every day, it's way more powerful because it's something that she was doing. And so to this day, every single night I sit down before I go to bed, and I do my 5-minute journal in the morning and at night, by the way, also in my morning routine. But I also, after I get done with my 5-minute journal, I have this little notebook and I just write every single awesome thing that happened for the day, every single bit of abundance that I encountered. I mean, I will go on and on and on until this light in my room goes off that I have on a timer. It goes off at 10:30.
Oh, nice.
And I put it on and it comes on at 9:45 and goes off at 10:30. And the goal is that I get in there, I shut my electronics off before 9:45, and I'm in the room and I can fill out my 5-minute journal. I can fill out my abundance list. And then I can also read for a little bit, right? Like I do my interest reading at night to get my brain stemming to have some awesome dreams or whatever. I like to read a lot of like history stuff, like Graham Hancock. I love that guy. Magicians of the Gods or Fingerprints of the Gods, things like that. And when I start writing down these wins, man, it's like I have an abundance of food in my house, right? Like there is an abundance of just crush credits in the universe, and giving is a big part of everything I do. And I've learned that recently, which is a whole nother subject that we can get into at some point. But the more that you give, right, with humanity, the more the universe is going to give you back. And if you think you don't have enough money right now, I want to challenge you to start giving away your money when you feel like you don't have enough, because you are going to see the most amazing things happen. I promise you. I know it's scary, and I know it's something that's why I can't do that because I won't be able to pay my bills. I promise you, when you start giving things to people who need them more than you, when you start changing the world, that's when the world will come back and change you. And it's just one of those principles. It's like, I dare you to, right? It's like the world saying, I dare you to. And when you do, it's magical. And I just think that if you can shift your mindset and suppress those fear gremlins like Dave and Jacqueline have taught me, that's when it all changes, man. And that is the secret to being happier. And that's kind of what the principle of my book is. It's a book on happiness. I haven't titled it yet, but literally I've taken all of these 8 core principles that I figured out, and I'm going to explain how I've implemented them to my life to make it something that, I mean, I've created my dream now, and how you can do it too with actionable steps and things like that. And it's been a really cool roller coaster to go through all that information and the things that I've done, because it's hard to take time out of your day to analyze yourself. Cami Walker wrote a book called 29 Gifts, and it's a pretty awesome read just from a magical standpoint, where she talks about she was just like in this miserable state thinking her life was over and like it was just gonna be miserable, and one of her mentors had given her this task to like try to give something away for 29 days and keep a journal of it. And it's kind of her log of doing that and how it's like completely revolutionized and changed not only her life, but people around her. And so she challenges you to do it as well. So I started doing that last month, and I did my 29 days. Now I've started over again. I think I'm on day 7, and it's just, man, it's the most incredibly humbling humanitarian thing ever. Like it's Ubuntu, right? It's giving to the world, and the world gives back to you. And it's just, you feel like you're kind of one with the universe. And I think that's something that too much of us get disconnected from. And so, yeah.
Cool. Heath, I do want to be mindful of the time, but before I get on to the final question, how can people find out more about your work? What are you working on? I know you're taking the social media sabbatical, so that's probably not a great option, but yeah, how can people connect with you, or just what are you working on, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so I decided from a focus standpoint, because I was able to put my resignation into my job and move. The 2 most important things right now, right? Yeah, right. Like it's still it's still not real to me. The 2 most important things, like I said, I do 2 things at a time, or build my side e-commerce business, which is that's for a whole nother podcast we could talk about. And then concentrate on doing this book. And so, to be honest, I love social media for what it is, but it can be an extremely distracting thing because you're constantly getting disrupted and drawn into more interesting things that you want to be a part of. And I'm one of those people that I want to do everything that's exciting to me. And so it's really important for me to be mindful of what I'm spending my time on. So what I did was I put my podcast on kind of a brief hold where I'm doing interviews. I'm still releasing solo episodes every once in a while of insight and blog post value and things like that. Just kind of creative, quickie mind thoughts. So that was at the Entrepreneur Now, which is artsynow.com. That's where all my interviews and my whole interview index is. You can, if you're a podcast like on iTunes, you can just go to artsynow.com/iTunes. But as of right now, I'm doing the book and the e-commerce business. So you can follow me on social media. Instagram and Twitter are the only two that I would engage with, and I will be back there probably. I think I set a date, like once I move to Washington, I'll probably be checking in there, but I'm not going to be until then. And it's at Heath Fist Pumps. But the best way to contact me is just to email me at Heath, Heath, at fistpumps.com. And if you want to check out the book I'm working on, just go to fistpumps.com, and there's a page up where you can sign up to be a beta reader or enter in to get a chance to win one of those free copies when I get done making them. And with all of these principles, I can bring this to other people so they don't have to work, as long or as hard as I did to be able to create the fundamentals that they need in their life to dominate and become one with their passion, right? To get away from these soul-sucking, miserable jobs and to be able to just smile and fist pump and realize that every day can be a Saturday, right? You have to live your life as if you had to live the same life all over again.
Awesome stuff, man. So just before I get to the final question, I just want to take a bit of a little time out to acknowledge you for everything you've done and the path that you've walked, for not just sort of crawling in a little ball and crying, but actually going out and doing something to change your situation. From lying on the floor in an apartment to fist pumping. Really grateful for you coming on the show and sharing your story. And final question is, what one small action can listeners take this week to start optimizing their lives?
Well, first, dude, I wanted to say thank you for don't just thank me. This is a two-way street here. Like, we have both contributed our energy to make this podcast possible, and I really appreciate you doing that. But also to everybody listening, like I can't stress to you enough how much we are alike. If you feel like you're nobody, if you feel like you have no talents or that you can't push forward, believe me, I was there, and so many other people were there too that have now created the life that they love. So never give up on that, and reach out, and do not be scared to send me or Brian an email, because I know we will both respond. If you can do one thing today, start getting rid of things that are distracting, because it's an insanely hard thing to do. And I know we didn't touch on this much, but I think out of all the things that we didn't talk about, that is the one thing that I started doing that really opened up this opportunity to be more focused on the things that matter. So you can start a morning routine, and you can go out and have this fire and fist pump and say that you're going to, commit and do all these things. But when these distractions get in the way, it's going to slow you down. It's going to knock you off the rails, and you might not be able to accomplish it. So one of the most important things you can do is literally just to eliminate distractions. What I'm saying is, there are so many distractions around you, not just materialistic things, right? I honestly started with just by blocking certain applications on my computer so that I didn't have to get stuck working. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, check out this notification here. And like, there's different tools that allow you to do that. But basically, in a nutshell, dude, when you have less stuff, and this can be mental clutter or this can be physical clutter, but when you have less stuff, you're going to have less distractions. And when you have less distractions, it makes you more aware. And when you're able to realize that you have more awareness, you can pay attention to things in life that matter more, like forming stronger relationships with people around you, or people that you may be scared to reach out and talk to, or engaging in higher levels of creativity that you don't think you're capable of. And when you start to combine that amazing new creativity and engagement, and you mix it with those strong relationships, you're going to continuously open up new doors that lead directly to clarity and meaning and abundance in life. And when you live kind of with clear intent, you're going to undoubtedly discover that that pursuit of happiness that you dream of, it's not only possible, man, it's absolute. And as long as you focus and you make that step every single day and you keep those distractions away, you will inevitably create the life that you love. It's going to happen. So if you could do anything today, just start looking around at things. And the easiest way to do it, man, is just to say, does this contribute to the value that is going to get me to where I want to be in life? Like, and if it doesn't, just start with one thing. And this could be deleting a file off your computer. This could be writing down an idea in your head to get it out of your mind. It doesn't just have to be physical things. But if you do that and then keep a journal of what you've gotten rid of, it's really cool to go back and look at how you don't miss any of that stuff. Like you don't miss any of it. And then you start to become addicted to eliminating distractions. And you can just start steamrolling, fist pumping, dominating, all that good stuff. So
I love it, man. Heath, I can't thank you enough. This has been an unbelievably awesome show, and I'm fist pumping over here on my side. I'm sure you're doing the same. Thanks so much again, and we'll chat soon. So there you have it, guys. As I said, an incredible episode with Heath, and I just want to say thanks again to him for coming on, really sharing so much with us. If you like this episode, make sure you head on over and check out the show notes at briantier.com/003, and you'll see all the links and resources we mentioned in the episode. Also, be sure to share it with your friends, and let me know what your biggest takeaways were by sending a tweet to @briantier. Finally, to get all the episodes as soon as they're released, make sure you subscribe on iTunes at briantier.com/iTunes, and I'll talk to you guys soon.